This week on Money Matters. It's been 65 years since the Korean War broke out. Traces of war and the promise of peace are still relevant to this day, even for many visiting tourists. And although the two Koreas remain very much apart, trade has not been on the hold. We look at cross-border economic exchanges. Also, Chinese investors continue on with a real estate shopping spree. More people are snapping up property in Korea, but why? What stories matter in Asia? We'll look at the changing landscape of business in Korea and the rest of Asia on Money Matters. Hello everyone, I'm your interim host, Na Hyun-kyung. Thank you very much for joining us this week. First, let's begin with some of the top business headlines across Asia. Korea faces low risks of massive capital outflow, being well equipped to weather economic crises. This is a finding published by the country's POSCO Research Institute, which examined 30 emerging countries and determined that Korea is not vulnerable to any of the 6 factors that signal weakness to economic crises. The areas that were assessed include external debt to GDP ratio, the inflation rate, and the pace of economic expansion. Experts say most Asian countries, including Korea, have a fairly strong stance when it comes to economic fundamentals and foreign exchange. The 6 millionth car rolled off the production line of Hyundai Motor in India as of the end of May. Korea's largest automaker said it's the second time the company zipped past the accumulated 6 million unit mark overseas since its first record in China. Hyundai has sold more than 3.7 million vehicles in India since it started production in the country in 1998. The rest were exported to Mexico, South America, Europe, and Asia. Hyundai said it will introduce smaller sports utility vehicle models to make further inroads into the world's 4th largest auto market. And in the meantime, in terms of automotive quality, Korean brands have surged ahead in a key consumer survey released in the U.S. According to market researcher J.D. Power and Associates' annual initial quality survey on 84,000 new car owners, Korean vehicles improved quality by the largest margin. Kia Motors placed second in overall performance behind Germany's Porsche, while Hyundai ranked 4th. Japanese automakers overall saw a significant slide, with only 3 brands making it into the top 10. J.D. Power's vice president said this reflects, quote, a clear shift in the quality landscape. Korean Air has inked deals with Airbus and Boeing to add 100 next-generation aircrafts to its existing fleet. The flag carrier said it sealed deals with the 2 manufacturers, confirming orders worth $6.9 billion at the Paris Air Show. The Korean carrier will buy 30 A321neo planes from Airbus and 30 Boeing 737 MAX jets, while taking options of 20 additional aircrafts from each manufacturer. This puts the overall order at an estimated $12.2 billion. The company's chairman, Cho Yang-ho, said the carrier looks to swap out old planes with more fuel-efficient models. More than 2 decades after reunification, Germany has seen rapid advancements in its economy, with the tourism industry chalking up billions of US dollars a year in revenue. Now, much of this has to do with memories of war and reunification, something Korea is all too familiar with. This year marks the 65th anniversary since war broke out on the Korean peninsula, and here in the South, efforts continue to develop new channels in travel and tourism for people to gain a better understanding about the scars of war and look into future prospects for peace.
Linking South and North Korea, the demilitarized zone symbolizes peace and unification. Areas surrounding the DMZ are bound by various restrictions that effectively limit their economic development. But if you transform the traces of war into a tourist attraction embodying peace and reconciliation, the vestiges of the Korean War have immeasurable economic value. Limits on development near the DMZ mean the region is very well preserved, and businesses in the region have capitalized on these natural resources by incorporating them into tour packages. New additions to the DMZ tourism industry are cropping up every year.
아무래도 많이 잦죠. 그렇게 남녀의리가 어느 특정한 층이 정해져 있는 것은 아니고 결코 아니고 지금 한 14년 지나고 나서도 한 3만 명 정도, 그다음에 한 볼 때 한 12억 정도 볼 수 있겠습니다.
I'm here at the War Memorial of Korea, which houses records and traces of the Korean War from 65 years ago. The exhibits make it easier for foreign visitors to understand the extent of the cross-border conflict, and the place has become a mainstay for security tours. And in this way, war artifacts are no longer just a symbol of division and bloodshed, but a foundation for peace and reconciliation, also boosting the local economy.
Regional governments near the DMZ in the south have been generating profit through so-called security tourism. One of the highlights of visiting the DMZ is a train tour that runs from Seoul through Paju City in Gyeonggi-do Province to Cheollon County in the eastern Gangwon-do Province. In Paju, there's a unification observatory and a peace park, and the city runs various security tour programs, such as the DMZ bike ride at Imjingak Pyeongwanuri Peace Park, and it's in the process of developing more.
현재 한국관광공사 KNTO의 리서치 조사 보고에 의하면 경제적인 생산 유발 효과는 약 한 13조 원에 해당된다고 그럽니다. 또한 약 한 15,000명의 고용 창출을 할 수 있다. 이렇게
DMZ는 한국 전쟁 이후에 우리 미래의 통합의 아이콘이 될 수 있다고 생각이 됩니다. 세계 사람들에게 자유와 평화의 메시지를 전하는 발신지이기도 합니다. 다양한 콘텐츠를 개발하고 조성해서 많은 국내 관광객들이 DMZ를 통해서 자유와 평화를 느끼고 체험할 수 있는 곳으로 바꿔보고자 합니다.
The idea of selling goods and services based on war and peace is not unique to Korea. In Germany, the State Tourism Board actively promoted the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall to attract more foreign travelers last year. The country reportedly earns around $300 billion every year from selling products with themes of war and peace. In Vietnam, one of the reasons it was able to rise as an emerging market in Southeast Asia was the tourism industry it built around the Vietnam War. Before Vietnam launched its so-called dark tourism in 1986, only 7,000 foreigners had visited the country. But through extensive marketing, the numbers ticked up by more than 10% annually, and last year, 7.6 million travelers visited the country. Back in Korea, work is underway to build a World Peace Park near the DMZ. Also, concerts for unification and other cultural events near the demilitarized zone are proving to be an extra source of profit-making, giving the industry a further bump.
Now this year marks 70 years of division on the Korean peninsula. In August of 1945, the 38th parallel was established, separating the south from the north. But over the years, trade has also been set in motion between the two Koreas. And though it started as an insignificant amount, recently it's grown to a considerable sum of money. So just how much do the two Koreas exchange and exactly what gets traded? On today's In Numbers, we'll be taking a closer look at inter-Korean trade, something that treads on rocky waters yet has still managed to grow. Now, June of 2000, the leaders of South and North Korea met and signed the South-North Joint Declaration, opening a doorway to new relations between the two countries. Now, as a result, inter-Korean trade took off. And though trade existed in the 1990s, after the Joint Declaration, growth soared. And in 2010, the annual trade value was calculated at $1.9 billion. Now, through the next few years, a couple of hiccups in the South-North relations caused a dip in trade between the two Koreas. And in 2013, a tumultuous year for the inter-Korean relation,
A total trade value of only $1.1 billion reflected the degenerating relationship on the Korean peninsula. But last year, that amount was tallied to be at $2.3 billion, the most to ever be seen traded between the two Koreas. Now, where does this trade come from? Well, just about 99% of this amount is attributed to the joint Kaesong Industrial Complex. Opened in 2004, the Kaesong Industrial Complex, located in the north, became a cheap source of labor for South Korean companies while providing the north with an important source of foreign currency. With 124 resident companies providing over 54,000 jobs, the complex's accumulated production value is said to be worth $2.8 billion. Now, after brief closure in 2013, which resulted in a drastic shrink of inter-Korean trade that year, the Kaesong Industrial Complex is now up and running, posting greater growth in production. As for what the inter-Korean trade is made up of, the biggest contributor is textiles. And when combined with the next largest contributor, electronics, the two categories make up 70% of inter-Korean trade. Now, they're followed by daily goods, machinery, chemical engineering goods, and agricultural and fishery products. Now, many predict that the Kaesong Industrial Complex will continue to grow, with more progress expected in the near future. Now, that finishes up today's In Numbers. We'll keep our eyes peeled for any new trends and developments coming your way.
Now it's time to check out the latest trends in business. And joining us today for that is Misorang. Good to see you again, Misorang. So what eye-catching stories do you have for us today?
Well, MERS has certainly put a damper on the Korean tourism industry, but of those still visiting are Chinese and Japanese. And what's interesting is that these two have very different styles when it comes to shopping. Chinese customers are freestyle explorers. They roam about, following whatever catches their eye. They enjoy the browsing process itself and are open to suggestions from other people. On the other hand, the Japanese are goal-oriented. They come prepared with a shopping list and they'll more or less stick to it regardless of outside influence.
So do they share the same shopping list at least, no?
Not quite. The Chinese visitors usually go for makeup, electronics and medicinal herbs, whereas clothing and dried seafood products such as laver are popular among the Japanese. And moving on, the Asia-Pacific region surpassed Europe last year in terms of private financial wealth. And that's according to estimates by the Boston Consulting Group. In 2014, Europe had a combined wealth of $42.5 trillion, which is a notch lower than the $47.3 trillion Asia-Pacific recorded minus Japan. On the back of a booming equity market and a new generation of entrepreneurs in China and India, the region expanded by an astounding 29% in 2014 alone. And Asia's lead in individual financial assets is expected to continue for some time, and BCG predicts that the region will surpass North America by next year. And Japanese firms have been buying in foreign companies at a record pace this year, with overseas M&A deals reaching $52.3 billion so far this year. This is a 60% jump from the same period last year, and despite a weaker yen, which makes overseas acquisitions more expensive. Thanks to Bank of Japan's stimulus efforts and cheap loans, local firms have amassed over $2.2 trillion in cash. But declining birth rates and an aging society at home have encouraged companies to look outward for growth, where economic forecasts are brighter. And with the yen projected to slide further under Abe's drive to beat deflation, firms have a stronger incentive to spend now.
All right. And our last topic is about the surging funeral business in other parts of Asia.
That's right. And this is in contrast to Korea, where the big boom in funeral business has already fizzled. Here, the market first emerged in 1982 before its heyday in the early 2000s. Since then, the market has more than halved from over $6 to $3 billion. But the industry is budding in Southeast Asia. The market was worth $4 billion in 2013, but is forecast to reach $7 billion by 2018. And spearheading this growth is Malaysian firm Nirvana Asia, which has a 30% market share in Malaysia and 14% in Singapore. Its strength is in pre-selling burial plots as protection against soaring land prices especially the ones that have good feng shui or harmonization with the surrounding environment.
And of course, we can attribute this change to the rise in disposable income and the changing values of the younger generation in Southeast Asia.
That's
anyway,
right.
Thank you very much, Ms. Arirang, for coming in today and sharing this report with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, China's rapid growth has led to the formation of a new affluent class, and now just behind the U.S., it has the second largest group of super rich. For many of them, real estate investment is becoming an increasingly attractive option, and Korea is no exception. Our Im Yoon-hee joins us with more today. Welcome to the program, Yoon-hee.
So you're absolutely right about that. So recently, we've seen a booming trend of Chinese investment in Korean real estate. Now, of the foreign landowners in the country, the Chinese have been on a rapid rise, drawing a lot of attention. So let's take a look at why Chinese investors have been snatching up Korean property.
With more Chinese companies and private investors eyeing Korea's real estate market, there's been a surge in special fairs within the country, aiming to attract greater investment. Chinese capital has been flooding many foreign real estate markets, Korea being one of them. Other than the geographical proximity of the two countries, there are several other factors that have contributed to this.
中国的很多的别墅可能的空气质量不是很好，是一个韩国的一个首都嘛，交通各方面比较方便。像我们来自上海的，上海过来飞过来就1个小时40分钟。
According to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the number of Chinese landowners has been growing by large margins. As of last year, they own more than 13 million square meters of land. But looking at real estate in general, the makeup is much bigger. By area, Jeju Island outstrips other places by far, being the first real estate hotspot for Chinese investors. Following are Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces, and by city, Seoul and Incheon City have the largest areas of land owned by Chinese.
我们中韩两国的交流的合作的这个面，已经不仅仅是局限在这个度假和这样一个养生啊，包括居住的需求了。这其中一个最大的一个改变是两国通过中韩自贸协议区的签订，更加关注产业方面的合作。我觉得至于说为什么会发生这么大的一个转变，用一句话来概括啊，是因为我们两国所共同关注的方向和共同努力的目标，包括我们两国人民在不动产方面。
Especially in the case of Incheon, by establishing a free economic zone in 2003, it's become a popular destination for both local and foreign investors.
네, 인천경제자유구역은 인천국제공항과 20분 정도 떨어져 있는 거리에 있으며 외국 투자자들한테 글로벌한 정주 환경을 고려하여서 미단시티를 지금 개발을 하고 있는 립보에서는 카지노 복합 리조트를 미국 시저스 엔터테인먼트사와 함께 하고 있고요. 국경이나 상해 같은 일일 생활권으로 되어 있어서 비즈니스와 생활에 가장 큰 매력으로 다가가고 있습니다.
To further encourage foreign investment, Incheon has also been working on relaxing regulations that could hurt growth in the free economic zone.
Now, within the Incheon Free Economic Zone is this large business district known as Hongdo. Now, currently there are projects in the making aimed at bringing about landmarks within this high-rise building site. And already a few have been completed, including this G Tower, along with the Northeast Asia Trade Tower, and a few other international service centers. Now, as the area gains more elements needed to become a regional hub, real estate is becoming an increasingly attractive option for both local and foreign investors.
The district of Songdo is not only popular for investment, with its residential facilities, commercial area, international schools, and other amenities, it's a popular location for people to live in as well. Earlier this year, Chinese investors are said to have signed leases for 7 apartment buildings in the area. Meanwhile, with the 2019 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics fast approaching, Gangwon-do province is becoming another popular destination. Earlier this year, Chinese investment company SCI Holdings announced it would build a $181 million tourism complex near the eastern coast.
현재 지금 강원도 양양에 있는 양양공항이 중국의 30개 도시를 취항하고 있고 북경이 2022년 동계올림픽을 신청했잖아요. 그렇기 때문에 그 전에 개최되는 평창에 대한 관심이 급증하면서 많이 늘어나기 때문에 1대1로 맞춤형 투자 세일즈에서 이분이 유치부터 조기 정착까지 할 수 있게끔 공격적 마케팅을 실시하고 있습니다.
An influx of Chinese capital has helped give Korea's struggling real estate market a much-needed lift. But the massive entrance of investment has also raised voices of concern. This is due to rampant development that has damaged the environment in places like Jeju Island, but has also skyrocketed real estate prices.
최근에 들어온 것들을 보게 되면은 과연 이 자본이 투자자의 적격 자본인가에 대한 논란도 많고, 그리고 먹튀족에 가까운 단기성 투자가 많기 때문에 이에 대한 주의가 필요해 보입니다. 투자자 적격에 대한 심사 절차가 어느 정도 마련돼야 할 것으로 보입니다. 그리고 두 번째로는 이 자본이 고용 창출에 어디만큼 도움되는가, 지역 경제에 어디만큼 도움되는가가 투자 단계에서 평가되고 나서 각종 혜택을 줄 때 검토돼야 할 것으로 보입니다.
So what I want to know first is since when did Chinese investors start buying Korean land?
Right, so in 2010, the so-called real estate investment immigration system was put into place, and that's really when investment began pouring into the market. Now, the system offers a green card for investors who spend a certain amount of money on Korean real estate purchases. And currently, it applies to 6 areas, including Jeju Island, Pyeongchang, more specifically the Alpensia area, where they're preparing for the 2018 Winter Olympics, but also the Incheon Free Economic Zone. Now, because of the possibility of permanent residence, it's said that Chinese investors really jumped at the opportunity.
Let's put aside Korea for a moment. How can we explain the capital outflow from China of real estate investment into other parts of the world then?
Exactly. So in 2013, in order to deflate the country's property bubble, the Chinese government introduced a number of measures to curb real estate speculation and reshape the overall property market. Now, this is why individuals and companies started looking at investment opportunities abroad, where restrictions are looser, but it's not just profitability. A lot of these investments come with personal interests such as immigration or education for children. Now, places such as Hongdo and Incheon, which you just saw in the report, and also Jeju Island, for that reason have been extremely attractive in the eyes of Chinese investors.
But with the massive and at times under-regulated amount of investment coming in, it's bound to come with side effects, correct?
Right. So recently, we've really seen a sharp increase in property prices, leading to concerns about a real estate bubble as well as speculation in the market. Now, as a result, in the UK, officials have raised the amount of required investment to £2 million, or about $3 million in investment immigration. And in Australia, in order to stop speculation, the government is looking to impose heavy taxes on those who do not live in their property or fail to lease it out. Now, Korea is also weighing in on a few options, and in the case of Jeju Island, where there's the largest amount of investment, the local government has said it will raise the required sum for immigration.
Okay, we'll have to keep an eye on how this will develop. Thank you very much, Uni, for covering the story for us today.
You're very welcome.
And that's all we have on Money Matters. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll bring you plenty of stories as they unfold in Asia and give you a view of the changing landscape of business in the region. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. Thanks for watching.